Yep. We are live. We're live from the hive. And there's the fire. I'm trying to sit so y'all can see the fire, because that is a nice little fire. Let's see who's going to get the no prize tonight. Who's going to win? Who's going to get to be the champ up in here? And I think it was, let's see, who was that first person? JP? I don't know who JP is, but JP, you have won the no prize. You are the champ tonight. You have won it. You got the belt. You get to flex your pythons because you have won the no prize for being the first person on the broadcast. Hey there, Mary J. Girl. Welcome to the broadcast. That's the no prize. It's the most coveted prize on Periscope. But anyhow, we're going to get started in just a bit. I'm waiting for a few more people to pop on. We're going to talk about why you're still in the cave. Putting it in the bio. That's awesome. Oh boy. We've been awarding no prizes for a while. Well, it's a reference to a story in the Bible about David before he was made king of Israel, and he had to hide out in a cave for a while. It was a really huge cave, and he hid there with about 400 men. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. But that's what we're talking about. But symbolically, still being in the cave means you haven't come into your real assignment yet. You know, there's something that God promised you, but you still haven't seen its manifestation. And you seem to be stuck in a place where you're kind of on the run, you're in hiding, or you're just not manifesting what you think God has for you. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm going to wait for a few more people to come on. If you want to share the broadcast on whatever social media you'd like to use, if you want to invite followers, so on and so forth, we're going to get into this. And if you hear any noise in the background, that is my ridiculous cat who picks the most opportune moments to play with a little ball of tinfoil that she's apparently swatting all over the kitchen right now. She did it last night around midnight. It's like, right, I want to sleep. This is when you decide to play with this thing. I also discovered little wet cat footprints all over the living room because she somehow manages to get her feet dirty, I guess, from the fireplace. There's dust and ash around there. She goes into the bathroom, gets into the tub, gets her feet wet, and then she leaves footprints all over the house. And the more time I spend with this cat, the more I like dogs. But that's another story. And, first time using Periscope. Welcome aboard, Looking for Christ. Good to see you. This is the Rift Online Church, building God's kingdom in you. And when we say that, we mean it. That's our agenda. That is our program. For Christ to be so formed in you that you can't help but become who God intended you to be. That's the goal. And that is the mission of the fivefold ministry. Most people, too many people don't engage in that mission, but that's another story. But let's get started. If you have your Bibles, or if, like me, you're using the internet, I use a little something called, sometimes I use BibleGateway.com. Tonight I'm using GodRules.net to look at the Bible when I'm broadcasting on my laptop here. So if you see me looking in this direction, it's because I'm looking at my laptop. And we are in 1 Samuel chapter 22. And we're starting at the first verse. All right, we're going to get into this. Father, I thank you for your word. I thank you for it falling on good ground. I thank you for setting a watch over my mouth that I would not say anything untoward, unkind, unscriptural, unprofitable, but rather that you would use me to speak the oracles of God and render a word in due season for your people that would break bondage, that would identify destinies, that would help them become who you intended them to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Welcome back, Looking for Christ. I used to play the Welcome Back song, but I don't know what I did with it on my computer. And wait a minute, I might have it. Welcome back. All right, we did manage to play the Welcome Back song for somebody. Anyhow, I try to give a little recognition to people when they come back, because they don't have to. Hey there, Cinder780. Welcome to the broadcast. I haven't seen you in a while. God bless you. At least I don't think I've seen you in a while. But here we go. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 22. We're talking about why you're still in the cave. Because a lot of people are. Some people don't even realize they're still in the cave. But here we go. Starting at the first verse. David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. And he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, Let my father and my mother, I pray you, come forth and be with you till I know what God will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him while David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, Abide not in the hold, depart and get you into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hareth. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things going on here. We're not going to get into what happened with Saul. But there comes a time when the prophet tells him it's time to get out of the cave. And a lot of us, we're eager to get out of the cave, but we haven't really heard from God. And I see this all the time where people are trying to contrive a ministry. I have it happen all the time when I've got a prayer thread going, I've got a prophecy thread going, or people are just messaging me. They want a prophetic word about their ministry. They want a prophetic word about something they're supposed to, some kind of church they're supposed to plant, or some kind of goal they have in relation to ministry. But the truth of the matter is they're not even ready for it. They're not ready. Like one person had a long list of things they wanted prayer about. One of them was ministry. And I'm thinking, you're not ready for ministry. Your house isn't even in order. You got all kinds of issues that need to get resolved right now. You got maturity issues. You're not ready yet. Not that God can't use you where you're at. But as far as the ministry that you believe God has called you to, you're not ready to move in that. And it's like it says, I believe it's in Proverbs, an inheritance may be hastily gotten, but the end thereof will not be blessed. And a lot of us try to move in things before their time. I know one prophet who she almost slipped and told me something she was trying to keep secret from me. I'm pretty sure I know, because something that happens with me a lot is when someone tries to hide something from me, I end up knowing. And I didn't have a clue before they tried to hide it from me, but then when they try to hide it from me, I know. It's like I pick it up. It comes on my radar. And she said she saw some things about my future and that it was really good. But she didn't want to tell me what it was. I was like, come on, tell me. Come on, I want to know. Hey there, Sadie, welcome to the broadcast. And she wouldn't tell me what she was seeing. And she says, I can't tell you because if I tell you, you'll put your hand on it too soon. I don't know about that. She's pretty sure I will. I don't think I will. I'm a little more patient than that. But I've been waiting like 20 years. Come on. I'd like to at least know. But anyhow, there we go. But the prophet came and told him. And this prophet Gad later became his personal seer. In 2 Samuel, I think it's in chapter 26, where he's identified as the prophet Gad, David's seer. The Nabi Gad, David's kosa. He was an advisory prophet. A lot of us don't understand, and you see the transition. The same prophet that gave him the sure word of prophecy that now is the time to come out of that cave became his advisor. A lot of us wanted to get into an advisory position, and you see this a lot in ministries. We got folks that are prophetic or folks that are prophet, and they want a position in ministry or they want to be influential in ministry, but they weren't there in the beginning. They weren't there during the hard times. They weren't there when you were on the run. But they want in on the action when it gets good. Don't work that way. But we got to understand why we're still in the cave. Some of us have been in the cave too long. We're supposed to get out of the cave. The prophet's been saying it, but we haven't heard it. Because they didn't say it the way we wanted them to. But I want you to catch this. In the very first verse, it calls this cave Adullam. Now, a lot of people have a lot of theories about what exactly this means, because the word itself doesn't have a meaning other than it's a place in Palestine. And I hate that it calls it Palestine, because Palestine doesn't exist. There's no such place as Palestine. It was called the land of Canaan before that, and then it became called the land of Israel. There's no Palestine. There was Philistia, where the Philistines lived, but that wasn't the whole thing. There are 5 different cities that belonged to the Philistines. The rest was Israel's. And even that was up for dispute. But anyhow, it comes from a different root, number 5724, which is Adlai. Now, or Adlai. And it says from an unused root of uncertain meaning. Adlai was an Israelite. And the name means justice of God. And he was believed to be an ancestor of Shaphat, the overseer of David's herds. Now, that part is not that important. But here's the thing. If they're right that the origin of the word Adullam is Adlai, then that cave is a place of justice. A lot of us don't come out of the cave because we're treating the cave God put us in like it was a punishment. We start, especially when God has put us in a hard place, it becomes very easy to resent the process. I'm speaking from experience here. Because God has had me in some very hard places. Got me in a hard place now. My goodness, God showed me in 1997, He called me to be an apostle. Here we are 20 years later. I'm like, God, can you give me something more to do? I feel like I'd be more useful. I feel like there's more than 6 or 10 or 100 people at a time that need to hear this. And if you don't watch yourself, you will start to resent the process He has you in. Because the cave isn't easy. Caves are cold. Caves are damp. Caves are not comfortable. Now that was a particularly big cave. I think the inside of it's about 900 feet across, or some ridiculous number. It's a really big cave. You can fit 400 people in there easily. And but he escaped from Saul, obviously, and he went to Adullam. This place was the justice of God. That God will sometimes put you in a very hard place because of His justice. And sometimes it will seem cruel, but it isn't. Because see, even in the book of Hebrews, it says that even Christ learned obedience by the things He suffered. God will put you in a suffering place because He's trying to make you. You'll find out some things. The cave is also a place of self-discovery. Because remember, Adlai is the justice of God. You have contact with the justice of God, you start to see how unclean you are. As one preacher said, and I loved how he said, I wish I could remember his name so I could give him credit for it, but I can't remember his name. But he said, in the cave, you will get to see how ugly you are. You get to see what your real motives are. Can you lead when it's not glamorous? Can you lead when there isn't really anything in it for you? Can you still lead? Can you still pray for people? Can you still minister for people? Can you still fast for people? Can you still solve their problems? Can you still be the deliverer? Can you still be the one showing up with a breaker anointing that brings everybody out of bondage, but don't nobody want to do nothing for you? Or better yet, can you still be that when they're not nice to you, when they're bad to you? Oh, man. Hey there, Brother Joe. Welcome to the broadcast. But, because let me tell you, I got some history with some bad folks. I noticed that folks bring their kid to me because their kid's got autism. They want me to pray for their kid. They don't say it. They don't even tell me the kid's got autism. I figured that out later. Because he was like 2.5 years old, wouldn't talk, would just grunt at people. He was real weird. Instead of he could walk, but he would get on his back and push himself around the room with his feet. Kid was really strange. It was autism. So I picked him up. I started praying for him. I cast it. I wasn't sure what kind of spirit it was, but I told whatever it was to come out and never come back. He's normal now. That was my nephew. After that happened, now he hadn't spoken a single word. His first word was my name. All the little kids in the family at the time would call me Sammy. Sammy was his first word. After that, you couldn't shut him up. And after that, my sister cut off all access to her children. She didn't let them come around me. That was how they treated the deliverer in their life. And it wasn't that pretty. Let's just say it was ugly. It was real ugly. I won't even say how she did it. I didn't see them for years after that. I saw them one time after that, I think. And I haven't seen them in, goodness, almost 10 years now. So they're grown now. Or close to grown. Hey there, Karen. Welcome to the broadcast. God bless you. That ain't the only experience like that I've had. Can you still let God use you as a deliverer when the people you're delivering don't treat you right? When they don't appreciate it? Well, they will treat you bad and still expect you to be a deliverer. My family was like that. They would have the nerve to treat you bad even after they just got a breakthrough through you or because of you. You think that's anything new? Look how David was doing. David was getting treated by Saul. Saul was winning all his wars because of David. Sure, he got jealous of him, but the reason he kept winning was David. And when you win a war, you get spoils. Read between the lines, folks. Saul was getting rich off David. He was already rich, but he was getting richer. And look how he rewarded him. This great leader of men that brought them so much victory has to go live in a cave. Now imagine this. By this time, David's probably close to 30 years old. But they estimate he was about 13 when they anointed him to be king. So he's known he's supposed to be a king for 17 years now. Imagine what that feels like. Because, if they anoint you to be king at 13, you're thinking, man, maybe I need to go get my head measured for a crown or something. 17 years later, living in a cave. And he came from a wealthy family. So he went from a pretty nice life, a comfortable life, a good life, and then the life of a war hero to this. Because God had to deal with. Another thing you got to understand about the cave is not only is God going to put you in a hard place to reveal you to you, because a lot of times there's things about ourselves we don't want to face. Goodness, I had somebody kind of try to chew me out the other day, a couple days ago, and I don't think they quite yet understand. I don't run from the truth. I don't fear accountability. I want the truth. I got a certain apostle friend who knows me very well. He don't have a problem telling me when he thinks I'm wrong. Now, sometimes he's wrong when he's telling me I'm wrong, but sometimes he's right. Think I run from that? Think I sit there and say, no, you're wrong? No. If he's right, he's right. Not going to run from that. Not going to hide from that. Of course, I've been living in a cave for a while. That's part of why. There's kind of no point in running. There's no point standing on ceremony where you're in a cave. There's no room for arrogance in a cave. Can you imagine? I doubt if you guys have ever seen those ridiculous cartoons, that movie Madagascar, and they got that character, I don't know what he is, a ringtail or something. It's this little creature, calls himself King Julian, played by that guy that was Borat. He says, I am King Julian. And he thinks he's a king, and he has a crown and all that. At the end of the first movie, he makes himself a new crown with a little gecko dancing on it. All this ceremony, all this pomp, and all he is a ringtail. And all he's got is a bunch of idiots following him. And later on, when he doesn't have anybody following him, he's just got 2 subjects left, he's still calling himself a king. That's what in the cave, he'd look real stupid doing that. Now, of course, he was still doing it because he was King Julian. But a lot of us do that. My goodness, I've seen so many preachers, they got 12 people in their church want to call themselves a bishop. Or you got people trying to become something when they're not ready for it. You know, it's like a certain friend of mine in ministry said you can have a perfect 5-year-old, perfect in every way, but not perfect to drive a car. And a lot of us, we're at the 5-year-old stage. Maybe we're a little older than that, but we're not quite that grown yet. And because we're gifted, we think we're more grown than we are. Believe me, I've been there. Goodness, I know how spiritually immature I was 17 years ago. I could prophesy accurately. Could see all kinds of stuff. I used to make people mad all the time. I said, Brother Sam, how come you don't never want to hang out with us? I said, because the Bible says not to company with fornicators. I don't think anybody in that church had secrets from me. But I wasn't mature. I had a gift. I could see. Heck, when I wasn't serving God, I'd know things about people. I'd lay my hand on a book. I was joking. I said, I'm learning by osmosis. And I put my hand on the cover of the book. Didn't bother to read it. Went to class, argued with everybody, made the professor look stupid. Accurate gift. Didn't always understand what was going on. I didn't know I was a prophet. Sometimes I knew things I didn't understand why I knew. Sometimes I thought I was just taking really good guesses. I just had incredible luck at guessing. Never occurred to me there might be a gift there. And sometimes I saw things or knew things and I didn't understand what I was seeing. Because here's the thing, sometimes you can, just because you have information doesn't mean you have understanding. Because we can both look at the same data and interpret it very different ways according to our level of understanding. There's things I know about websites and how to build websites. I know a little bit of HTML, not a whole lot. So I look at the code for a website, I might understand some of it. You take somebody who's actually a professional web designer. He'll really understand it. He can make changes to it that I can't. And so sometimes we have access to the same information. Sometimes we see things, and I've had things even happen recently where I saw things prophetically, I heard things prophetically, but I wasn't interpreting it correctly. Didn't understand what I was seeing, didn't understand what I was hearing. Now, a lot of us don't understand why God has us in the cave. Now, some of us are in there too long, like I said. But how do you get out of the cave? Look at what happened. It says everyone that was in debt, everyone that was discontented, everyone that was in distress, gathered themselves to him. Now, his family went down to him. I don't know whether they stayed. Well, some of his family members did, because later on we find out the names of his mighty men, and 3 of them are his nephews. As Abishai was called the son of Zeruiah. Zeruiah was David's sister. That's why he was always, later on he complained about the sons of Zeruiah and how much of a grief they were to him, because apparently they were sometimes, each one of them was a bit too much of a hard charger even for David. But anyhow, David took these people and I had said something about this earlier on Facebook. And I posed a question: when would leaders take responsibility and stop blaming the people for their inability to lead effectively? You know, a lot of us, sometimes we blame people who are discontented, or we like to call them malcontents, in our midst, and we blame them for the failures in our leadership. I remember my old pastor used to say, sheep beget sheep, because the ministry wasn't growing. There weren't more people. That was a cop-out. Yeah, sheep beget sheep, but sheep beget sheep once they're mature. A little lamb has no interest in mating season. That lamb just wants to play, and he wants to drink milk and maybe eat some grass once he has some teeth. But he's not looking for any friends in mating season, because he's not old enough. He doesn't have the hormones. He doesn't have the drive, and he doesn't have the goods. He couldn't. That little lamb can't impregnate anybody if he wanted to, because he's not mature. You want to see a ministry that's growing, you got to mature the saints. You want the sheep to beget sheep, or grow them up. And in the cave, you don't really got a choice but to do that. Because like I said, caves aren't fancy. It's not luxurious. You're either going to work on your people or you're going to have nothing to do. That cave experience will force you to have to deal with things. And this is what happened with David. Now, God didn't send, and here's the thing you got to also understand about your cave experience. God may not send you the greatest people out there. He may send you some people with problems. He may send you some real characters. He may send, oh man. You got to understand, if God has called you to leadership, and if you're presently in leadership, something you got to understand is those are your clowns and it is your circus. God sent in people that were in debt. People that were in distress. People who were in trouble. People who were discontented. Basically losers. He didn't send them the best and the brightest. He didn't send them the shining stars of Israel. In those days, it was a very shameful thing to be in debt. These are the people everybody looked down on. David took them and turned them into possibly the greatest warriors to ever walk the face of the earth. Among those men was the guy that fought and killed 800 men all by himself. Another guy who took his spear and killed 300 men all by himself. Several giant killers. And these were losers. Because something you get to learn in the cave, because God has stripped you down to nothing, and you don't have anything fancy, you don't have the best tools, you don't have the best equipment, you don't even have the best people. In the cave you learn that God plus nothing is all you need. I'm going to say that again. In the cave you learn that God plus nothing is all you need. God doesn't need to send you the best people. My goodness, God can take the worst and turn them into the best. He's God. In the cave, you'll find out He is God. In the cave, you got no choice but to accept His sovereignty. Because God, and I'm speaking from personal experience, God put me in a position where I'd like to say I'm a pretty good speaker. Every time I've ever given a speech, I think I've always gotten a standing ovation. I'm a really good speaker. God has put me in a place where I can't rely on ability. I can't network. I don't have the exposure. So I got to rely on Him. In the cave, you can't exactly grow a vegetable patch, can you? It's a cave. You ain't growing a vegetable garden there. God is also going to have to supply. They had to completely and totally trust God. And like I said, in the cave, you don't really have anything else to do, because guess what happened? He had to work with what God sent him. And he had to take responsibility for them. Because we like to talk about, he had 400 mighty men with him. Well, guess what? 400 mighty men eat a lot of food. I mean, I'm one man, and I'm a small man, and let me tell you, I can throw down. Bro, man can eat. If I want to, I can pack it away. And one time, sitting in a restaurant with the deacon. Deacon wasn't even hungry, he just took me to get me something to eat. And pastor of the church walked into the same restaurant, saw us there, and made a comment about how much food I had on my plate. And then he's like, he's eating as much as you, Deacon Clark. And Deacon Clark said, no, that's his plate too. Like I said, I can throw down. I'm just I'm little. I'm like 5'4". So you imagine some big 6'6" dude, how much food he's going to eat. You got 400 men. Most of whom are young and got a good metabolism. They're going to eat. An army marches on its stomach. You got to not just feed them, but you got to keep them well fed. You want to have a mutiny in a heartbeat, let your soldiers go hungry. David had to feed them. David had to make sure that they needed a water source. He had to learn logistics. Because sure, he had led men into battle, but he wasn't in charge of the supply train. He was just an officer in the king's army. Somebody else was handling the food. He had to feed them. He had to supply them. And here's the thing you learn in your figurative cave and in the work of the ministry. You're going to have to feed those people. You're going to have to nourish them. You're going to have to bring a word that will strengthen them and grow them. Now, I don't have a whole lot of regard for leaders who got churches full of people who they always got spiritual warfare that they can never overcome. And it's always, it's one thing to have warfare, but my goodness, we're not supposed to be losing all the time. They're losing all the time. It means they're not strong. If they're not strong, I hate to tell you this, leader, but it's on you. Yeah. And there has to be correction. Not that it necessarily has to be harsh. But there's got to be training. There's got to be discipline. And guess what? In the cave, you better learn some discipline. Especially if you're hiding from somebody. Not only do you have to learn how to handle the logistics of bringing in enough food to feed 400 men, but you got to do it without getting caught. You got to make some alliances with people. You got to get some people on your side who are not going to snitch on you and let Saul know you're over at Adullam. Ain't easy. We like to talk about when the prophet anointed David to be king. Yeah, that's when he got anointed, but the cave was where he became king. He wasn't really a king till he got to the cave. Because it was in the cave where he not only had to lead those men and train them and turn these losers into something great, but he also had to take care of them. He had to protect them. He had to provide for them. And he had to have a plan. Because you don't get 400 fighting men together and got nothing to do. That's going to lead nowhere good. And my goodness, you can keep 400 fighting men together in one place without them killing each other. You've learned something about leadership. A lot of times we're still in the cave because we're refusing to do that, or we're neglecting to do it. A lot of times we're still in the cave because we haven't taken what God has sent us and started doing something with it. Because that stuff is time consuming. Sometimes we go find other things to do when we're supposed to be working out in the cave. And some of us don't even get it. We're like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? Why doesn't God have me out in the field? Why am I not getting to speak at the conferences? Why don't I do crusades? I got people trying to invite me to other countries. No, I don't speak French. I used to, but I don't anymore. I have folks trying to invite me to other countries, but it's not time to go there. Oh my goodness, somebody's calling me a nerd and thinking I'm going to be offended. I am a nerd. Class of 96, Princeton. Nerd for real. But anyhow. Hey there, Miss Petrie, welcome back. But oh my goodness. A lot of us don't even realize the reason why we're not doing all these other things we want to do is because God is trying to get you alone to himself and trying to isolate you, not completely, but isolate you in the sense to make sure you're not doing all that. He's making sure you got the time to work on you, that you've got time to work on your people. Because my goodness, if God had just given David a palace from day one, who knows what would have happened to these guys? They may not have even ever noticed them. Sometimes God will put you in an uncomfortable place to find uncomfortable people. If David hadn't gone to the cave, he he may not have valued these men. And sometimes God will put you in a very uncomfortable place so that you learn to value even those who appear to be the least in the kingdom. Because like I said before, God plus nothing is everything you need. You want to get out of the cave? Take responsibility for your cave. Look around you. Take another look at what God has put around you. What do you got in your hand? What are you working with right now? Put it to work. Make use of it. Refine it. God doesn't have you in a cave because he's cruel. If he's got you in a cave, it's because he wants to make you a king. He wants to give you authority. But before you can walk in that authority, you got to learn how to lead. You also got to, in the cave, you also learn how to do away with what's not necessary. Like I said, caves are not luxurious for the most part. You're down to the essentials. Or as that bear in the Jungle Book would say, the bare necessities. You want to come out of the cave. Take responsibility for what's in that cave. The people that God sends you, work on them. Once you start doing that, and you start being, because a lot of us, we're waiting for something great and grandiose to happen to start becoming who we're supposed to be. It's like I used to tell people, and I still tell people from time to time. Imagine for a moment that you have achieved your wildest dreams. Everything you could possibly ever hope to achieve, you've achieved it. At that point in your life, when you've achieved all these great things that you want to achieve, how wise would you be? How clever would you be? How confident would you be? What would you allow to waste your time at that point in your life? What kind of person would you be then? Now, as you think of that person, this future you who's so awesome, I want you to realize something. That person you were just thinking of already exists inside you. You just haven't given yourself permission to act like it. Stop waiting to carry yourself like who you were intended to be. A lot of times we don't realize that we don't come out of the cave because we are, and sometimes we don't do it on purpose, but we're refusing to be the leader God called us to be. Because we're waiting for something great and grandiose to happen. No, this is the time to do it. Doesn't mean you're going to do great things right now, but my goodness, use what you got. You know, I don't got a whole lot of people following me right now. But I try to pour into them as much as I can. Because if nothing else, I'm just going to get better at this. And when the time comes, I'll be ready. Will you? I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found it useful. If you did, feel free to share it. Meanwhile, folks, God bless you and God keep you. It's Brother Sam for the Rift Online Church, signing off for now.